Welcome to Kat Yaps, a podcast about books, TV shows, movies, and the changes of having thoughts about literally anything else. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome to Kat Yaps. In today's episode, I will be talking about the book Mr. and Mistress Fate, written by Athen Cairstairs. And of course, there are spoilers ahead. So let's get into it. Okay, so the story starts with Gideon Fate, the CEO of Fate Publishing, a family business. His dad, Conrad, was in charge of it, but now Gideon runs it. His employees think of him as a tyrant. He's basically a jackass, which leads his board members wanting him to step down as CEO, especially Ira, who was Conrad's lapdog. Sarah, Gideon's assistant, tells the board, for reasons Gideon was not made of, that he is dating someone at the office, and this person has been helping Gideon become a better person. Gideon goes along with this. He tells the board that he's getting married to her, Talia Henderson. She is an editor there. The board lets this slide for now, but not Ira. He has his suspicions and says he wants to meet Talia tomorrow for lunch. Gideon agrees. Gideon and Sarah are alone now. He's on her ass about her making up this story, but Sarah clocks his ass and says, "You got yourself in this mess and you need to fix it." Gideon goes and sends an email to Talia asking her to meet him in his office. Talia receives the email. She is perplexed because Gideon has not once spoken to her from the time she has been working there, but she goes to the office where she meets Gideon. Okay, so Gideon's described as a tall, built man. He's from Spain, the MMC standard of hot, and Talia is biracial with a black mother and white father. She is gorgeous with a curly hair and slim, thick figure. Gideon, as I continue reading, will be annoyed, grumpy, and miserable at most times. So when he starts to speak about why he has asked her there, it isn't going well. He tells her that he has put a contract together because he needs her to marry him so he can keep his company. Gideon doesn't cut up with her, but gets straight to the point. Talia is shocked by this, but also annoyed by the way he's talking to her, like she has no choice but to do this, which is crazy because, my guy, you need her help. You would think Gideon would humble himself, but no, this is his problem now and why he's in this situation. The only reason why Talia would think about it is because the massive amount of money he will give her to do this. 2 years to stay married for $2 million. Talia says she will think about it. Talia goes home. She's met by her siblings. Now, before I forget, her name is Artemis. Her middle name is Talia. So if you hear me using all two, you know why. She is a quintuplet and also has 2 older siblings. Sai is the sibling she is closest to, and some of the others are in the kitchen talking to their mother. Now, Talia and her mother has a horrible relationship. She doesn't treat Talia well. It's almost like she isn't a child. Talia tries for the most part to be passive when it comes to her, but their mother stays saying stupid shit to get under Talia's skin, which brings us to her mother telling them that she is hiring Duncan, Talia's mean, abusive ex, as a PA at her architecture company. Talia, who was drinking her tea, trying to stay calm while being in the presence of her mother, drops the mug on the ground, her eyes becoming blurry. Sai runs up to her and tells her to go to her room, that it's not worth engaging with their mother. Talia goes to her room and tries to get herself together. How could you hire a man that was hurtful emotionally and physically to your daughter with a smile on your face? Listen, there is so much more shit her mother was doing, but we ain't get there yet. So Sai comes in and they talk about what just happened. They both just try to move on from it. It's a pointless battle right now. Sai uses his twin power and can sense that something is going on with Talia more than what just happened with their mom. Talia tells him about the contract with Gideon, and he is shocked and also finds her boss hot. He tells her she should do it, and she ponders that she should. The next day, they talk to their dad on the phone. He works in the military and wants the best for all his kids. They all, not including their mom, live under the same house. Talia wants this money to help with paying the mortgage on the house, to lessen the load on her father. She tells him she is dating Gideon. The conversation goes well. All her dad wants is for her to be happy. Talia goes into work later on and goes up to Gideon's office and tells him she will agree to the contract, but some things in the contract need to be taken out. They agree on a final contract. This is where he starts to do the MMC things. I am now coining a new word, a new phrase, MMC things. So, are the things that guys do in the books when they start to like the female character but act like they don't like her. I don't know if it's a new word, but whatever. He smells her shampoo of vanilla and apple, and he turns into a teenager. While they was finishing the contract, Gideon was talking all type of filth to her, but she wasn't catching it because he was being an ass. Anyway, now things start to progress. They have the meeting with Ira, and it doesn't go that well. Ira's not convinced at all. Talia had a bumpy start, but she pulled herself together. She was being timid at first, but stood up to Ira. Gideon telling him they are together. Simple. Gideon invites Talia to a work dinner. He goes to pick her up at her house. I should mention, Gideon has panic attacks when he's nervous or stressed out. So when Talia goes outside, she finds him on the ground. She comes up to him and helps him by using the 5 cents method. She takes him into her house and they both change out of their clothes. They eventually play black jacks and Talia is a pro at it. Gideon is turned on by her. Gideon also meets some of her siblings. They, for the most part, actually like him. Time has passed now, and Gideon is doing cute things for her, like buying her a new coat due to the cold weather. They're in the office, and Talia meets Gideon's next father, Eddie. Eddie is the nice one. Eddie is pleased to meet Talia. She also meets Caleb, Gideon's younger brother, and he immediately likes Talia. Caleb and Eddie is there to have a meeting with Gideon at the office. Whatever was said in the meeting has Gideon being an ass again, and he was starting to actually be somewhat of a decent person. But for the past 2 weeks from since the meeting had occurred, he's been being an ass. He invites Talia to his office and pretty much demands she goes to a work dinner with him. This would have been the same dinner they were supposed to go to before he had the panic attack. Comes to find out, it's his family dinner, but to Gideon, it's work. Talia agrees because there's no telling Gideon no. They show up at the dinner, and his other father, Conrad, is there along with his twin brother, Aaron. Gideon doesn't have the best relationship with Aaron, and his relationship with Conrad is just as bad. I wish we got more details as to why they both hate each other, but just know they vibing hard. Conrad tries to insult Talia by saying she's beneath Gideon, and he doesn't approve. Talia holds her own with Conrad. Gideon, however, wants to fight Conrad. Eddie and Caleb are there as well. Talia and Gideon leave to dinner. One thing I will say when it comes to Talia sticking up for Gideon, she's 10 toes down. Now, back at the office, Artemis and Gideon gets on a Zoom call with Artemis' family to tell them that they are engaged. We meet Alfie, who Talia finds the better-looking sibling. Alfie's a bombshell. Dios, the oldest of all the siblings, doesn't agree with what is going on, and Talia tells him if he doesn't like what's going on, he can get off the phone. Talia is a person who gets, from what I can gather, is a people pleaser and doesn't like to get in confrontation, so her standing up to Dio is huge, and the other siblings take her side. But by the end of the call, everyone congratulates them. I forgot to mention before that Gideon gave Talia a big-ass engagement ring as well before the call. News spread about the engagement, and everyone to work is talking about it, which puts Talia in an awkward situation. She goes home to get away from the gossip. She's also going to be moving in with Gideon. She's having a crappy day, and to make it worse, her sister comes by making her feel inadequate. Alfie even has the nerve to tell her she is stupid and naive to think people would not talk about it. But wait, Alfie was doing interviews talking shit about Talia as well. Her sister just sucks. Gideon comes over to the house and overhears some of the conversation and puts Alfie in her place, as he should. Gideon and Talia get into a nasty argument because he found out she told Sai about the arrangement. Sai gets in between Talia and Gideon argument, and Gideon threatens him. Talia then threatens Gideon, telling him that he can't do whatever he wants, that she has a say in this. Gideon shouts and says he can, and Talia is taken aback. She thinks he will slap her. Gideon realizes this. She starts crying. Gideon feels like an ass and apologizes to her quickly. By now, Gideon is somewhat aware that Talia may have been in a bad relationship before, but she hasn't spoken to him about it. Okay, so now the wedding is coming up in December, and Talia goes food tasting with Sarah. They have become besties now. Sarah is the only one who knows the real tea between Gideon and Talia, except for Sai. At the tasting, Talia feels out of place, compared to how Sarah is dressed, which is like a high fashion girl, whereas Talia is wearing jeans and a shirt, which when they go to the bridal store next, the worker there thinks Sarah is the bride and not Talia. Talia struggles with her confidence a lot in this book, but she pulls herself together and makes a joke at the worker about her being the bride. The worker is ashamed and apologizes. Leah invites Sai, Eddie, and Caleb along as well as she tries on dresses. Meanwhile, Gideon is looking for the perfect venue for Artemis. Gideon is so hot and cold because he acts like he can't stand Talia, but then he starts to learn things about her and wants her to like the things he's doing for her. The wedding day is here, and Gideon doesn't want it to be fake anymore. He's starting to grow real feelings for Artemis. He goes as far as making sure her dad is at the wedding. Talia is happy that her dad is there and realizes that Gideon was the one to make it happen. They both say their vows. Gideon expresses how Artemis is kind, honest, and compassionate, and how she is the most beautiful thing he has ever seen. Talia tells Gideon he shows her parts of himself no one sees, the part that feels everything so deeply and beautifully. They say I do. At the reception, they vibing again. They both are bad with communication. They both take which each other says the wrong way. They eventually move past it. Talia has been drinking and it's time for the garter removal. Gideon's being a perv. They both enjoyed the removal. Man, I forgot to say, they kicked Talia's mom out of the wedding. She was trying to wear a white dress and wanted to bring Talia's ex as her date. Talia has had enough at that point. The next day, which is actually Christmas, Gideon cooks for everyone. He likes to cook and is pretty good at it. Talia's dad has a talk with Gideon and invited him to go to a baseball game with him. Gideon starts to have a panic attack because he wants Talia's dad to like him and he wants to be treated as part of the family. Talia's there once again to help him through the attack. Later on, they exchange Christmas gifts. Talia invites Aaron to the party. She gives him a gift. Aaron was not expecting anything and cries like a baby. Gideon is kind of happy that he's there, but not really. He's still feeling him out. The next day, Artemis and Gideon goes on their honeymoon in Maui at Gideon's house there. Artemis wants Gideon badly. Being around him alone is tempting because, like I said earlier, he's hot. A couple of days in, and she finally tells Gideon she wants him, but she gives him oral sex. They both enjoy it, but Gideon feels bad and he feels like he treated Talia like a whore. Talia, instead of being sympathetic, loses it and tells him she is tired of his hot and cold ways. They once again are vibing. Eventually, Gideon opens up to Talia and tells her that he has never had oral sex before, nor has he ever had sex before. The way this man is be talking to her ain't no way, right? Anyway, because listen to me, he says a lot of filth throughout this book. Anyway, Talia tells him that he shouldn't be ashamed of this. Gideon is the one to give her oral now, and for the rest of the honeymoon, they continue with their foreplay, although they don't have sex and they haven't even kissed us yet. They're back from their honeymoon. Artemis goes back to work. She is confronted by Connor, her manager. He goes off on her, wanting to know how is it that she's working on the same floor as Gideon. She moved to his office after it was announced that they were together, and Gideon didn't want her down on the floor anymore with other employees. Asking if she slept her way to the top, Artemis does not defend herself, but instead is in a state of shock. But Gideon appears and tears into Connor. Connor, knowing what's best for him, crumbles. Gideon tells Sarah to take Artemis home. Gideon has to attend a board meeting. This board meeting will determine his future with the company. Ira, Conrad's lapdog, still tries to bring Gideon down at the meeting, using the altercation with Connor as an excuse to show the board that Gideon will never change. However, some of the board members see Gideon in a new light, stating he's been making improvement with the staff, such as giving them time off and holiday requests. Gideon also wants to incorporate mental health days. Although Ira is appalled by this, Gideon wins over the board. When Gideon gets home, Artemis is mad at him because she doesn't want him to lose his job over this. But Gideon says he would lose everything for her and finally tells her that he's in love with her. Talia does not do the same because she fails to believe it. As she should, because your boy is so hot and cold, why would she believe what he's saying? But to be fair, she kept throwing the word fake around with their marriage, and Gideon was past this, so some of the arguments were her fault. But of course, if they just communicated their feelings, like mature people. Anyway, some time has passed again, and Talia still has not confessed her love for Gideon, because at this point she does love Gideon. However, she does tell him about what happened between her and Duncan. She says that one night, When he came back home drunk with his friends, she overheard him telling them he wished he had gotten with Alfie, the quote-unquote hotter sister, instead. How Talia was bad at sex and always reading books, which confirmed her insecurities. Not only that, she came home one day and found him in bed with her mother, her actual mother. And this is the crazy shit Talia just let slide. Yeah, she was upset, but she ain't fight. You telling me you walking on your mother with your man and he ain't start swinging? Okay, sis. Talia playful bad. And it got even more worse. When she started to work at Fake Publishing, she kept a lot of late nights actually working, and this man had the audacity to accuse her of sleeping around. Talia told him he had no right accusing her of this, and he hit her in the head with a beer bottle, and she ended up in the hospital. And again, she aimed burst him in the mouth. Her dad wanted to kill Duncan. So he went over to their house, only to find Duncan sleeping with his wife, Talia's mother, again. And still, no one threw hands. Dad was in the military. You're a military man. You telling me you would make him disappear or something? Gideon is shocked by all of this. He swears that he would never do that to her. Gideon wanted to murk Duncan. But this ain't that type of book. Gideon and Talia finally kiss. Things get hot and heavy fast. Talia can't believe she's about to take her boss virginity. But she's feeling confident and hasn't felt this way in a long time. Gideon makes her feel good about herself. Gideon tells her that he may not last long, but he will get better at that. But for someone who hasn't had sex before, he seems to know exactly what he's doing. He becomes territorial, telling her that she is his forever. I promise y'all the scene is very spicy, but I'm keeping my content as YouTube friendly as possible just right now. But it was hot. Afterwards, Gideon feels like he's in paradise. Gideon tells Artemis that Sarah was not the one who suggested her name to the board. It was him. He was the one who told them he was engaged. Artemis is confused by this, but Gideon clears it up by telling her he noticed her the moment she started working for him. He would come to her floor to see her without her knowledge. Of course. He would check her work constantly. He said that she was better at this job than he was. He also confessed that the book he gave her on the plane when they went on their honeymoon was written by him. The book was based on their love. Artemis is shocked by this and left speechless. Now back at the office, Gideon receives a text from Aaron telling him to watch his back. A storm is coming. Attached to it is a picture of Conrad, their dad, Ira, and some of the board members. Artemis asks what this means. Gideon tells her that they are at war. They don't want him to have the company. Gideon arranges a meeting to meet Conrad and Ira. Gideon constructs a plan. Artemis is fearful, but Gideon tells her she is a queen and this business is hers as well, and she needs to act like a queen. He asks Artemis if she trusts him, and she finally says that she loves him. Conrad and Ira come into the office. Ira says that Gideon should not be CEO and their wedding was a con. Eddie walks in and explains that he and Gideon are the only two people who have shares in Faith Publishing. Conrad is furious and thought that Eddie listened to his instructions to write the contract stating that Eddie would have 25% and not 52% when he first started being more involved in the company. But Eddie says it must have slipped his mind. Eddie knew just what he was doing. Conrad leaving someone else to do his work and not reading the fine print of the contract was stupid, although at the time, I'm going to assume that this was when Eddie and Conrad was happily in love, and now they are divorced from one another. Gideon fires Ira, who was embezzling from the company. Is this shocking? No. This explains why he was trying to get Gideon fired. Eddie informs them that he has given his shares to Gideon, and Gideon has given half of his shares to Artemis. Conrad starts to run on about how Gideon's a disappointment, but Gideon shuts that down instantly and tells him to get out of his office. Gideon sends an email to all staff, letting them know that Artemis will be acting as CEO of Faith Publishing until further notice, that he will take some time to work on himself so that he become a better CEO. They're at home now having their first date. Gideon is teaching her how to make focaccia. It is not going well for Artemis, who is covered in flour. Gideon is laughing at her and proceeds to then throw flour at him. They both start laughing. Gideon then asks Artemis to marry him, like for real. But Artemis says no, that the way they came together is their love story, the one they will tell their children, that their love story is unconventional, but it is theirs. The end. Okay, so that is my commentary on Mr. and Mistress Faith. My final thought is I wish that the book was a little bit longer because I have questions like, can we unpack whatever was going on with Gideon and Conrad? Y'all just dropping that tension and walking away. I needed like at least 50 more pages to understand why they was beefing so hard. Anyway, it was actually a lot of side characters too. Like, I didn't really go too in depth about the book. I didn't want to give too much spoilers away. But between her siblings, his siblings, the staff, it was just a lot going on. Mind you, I'm curious about some of the other characters because they seem interesting, and it'd be cool to know like a little spin-off of them, or hopefully she might actually write a book about one or two of them, particularly Sai. And I wanted to know what would have happened if the brothers found out about Talia's ex and their mom, because she didn't talk about that either. Like, we didn't get that reaction. But all in all, it was a good book. If you're looking for spice, like, I'm going from 1 to 5. Like, it's like a 3. The spice is there, and the banter is pretty funny. Gideon is just literally an ass. Anyway, guys, that's my rant for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments and what I should yap about next. Until next time.